Namaste. Welcome back to Smriti. We have Shri V Raghuram Garu back again with us. Thank you, Raghuram Garu, to
Thank you.
enlighten us in the world of yoga. He's been doing so many discourses, talks, giving us valuable insights, practical aspects of yoga, and integrating to the body of knowledge of Vedanta. And thank you so much. It's such an honor and a privilege to be hearing from you. Today's topic in the section of Yoga and Vedanta, roadblocks we come across in our lives, myths and misconceptions in yoga. Raghuram Garu, please clarify the doubts we have in our practice of yoga. And also for people who want to step into this world of yoga, how do we embrace them? And bring some clarity, first of all, addressing the issues under myths or misconceptions. But before, I have a question. What is a myth and what is a misconception?
Yeah, the difference is this way. There is definitely a very important difference in that. The myth is something which people think of what is not connected with the day-to-day real life. It's something which is picked up from somewhere and then we just have this idea. And people talk a lot about those things. In fact, at one point of time, just to give an example, illustrate an example, I was trying to make the concept of some idea about chakras and all that very simple. And then a yoga teacher who was there, whose class that I was giving a special talk, then she came up to the audience and said, what Raghuram said is about the simple chakras and all that. Now I say about something which is very mystical and mythical kind of chakras and all those things. As if that I said, which is understandable to the people, is something which is not really yoga, and the real advanced yoga is what she is going to talk about. So this is the way people have fancy passion for all these kind of things. And a lot of times in yoga field, that these are the things which run a lot in the name of yoga. So therefore, I thought that it is necessary to see that we try to bring people out of this particular thing. The reason for that also is in the science of yoga, in the language of yoga that people talked about several thousands of years, they use the concepts, they use the words which are applicable those days. In the normal day-to-day life, they were applicable. Unfortunately, what happened is that we carry those words, and today in the normal life, they don't apply. So therefore, they become like myth kind of a thing.
That is interesting. Yes, we come across this jargon of a lot of terms, and you rightly pointed out how we can apply it mindfully, those terms in a responsible manner.
Right.
And then what is a misconception that you come across?
Misconceptions are this way, that this also again, people would like to impress upon the students. And one thing that when we say that relax your toes, relax your heels, you can visualize, you can go there, you can feel that where the toe is there, you can relax, all those things. It's a very simple instructions for the corpse pose or shavasana, or it's also adapted by the yoga nidra kind of a thing. But then I have seen some people, they keep the whole terminology from the pathology books, or even from the anatomy book, and then keep giving the instructions, relax your, what is that, duodenum and jejunum and all. I don't know, even the medical expert does not feel about where is the duodenum, how to relax that. Ordinary common man will not be able to do that. But then it is just people give this kind of instructions. So like that, there are a lot of misconceptions in that way, that we have to give it that way, only the instructions like that. These are the things which are prevalent in the society.
Thank you. So, well, I have more questions for a genuine yoga practice and being in that state of yoga for a good amount of time and really relish. Under the myth, probably this question might align. Is yoga a religious practice?
You know, all this knowledge that was there, whether it is yoga or whether it is the health, that is what is Ayurveda, it's about our architecture, etc. They all come from Vedas, because they were the Vedas are the base of all this literature that we have. So therefore, everything has to belong to that Vedas. Just because they belong to the Vedas, that they call it as religious practices, it's not so. There are certain things which are supposed to be religious practices. There are certain things which are not religious practices, but they are supposed to be the lifestyle practices. Even before the religion word came, we always used to have Sanatana Dharma, which is supposed to be the practice that we were doing. It's actually a lifestyle. It's actually a lifestyle, because the word religion itself came about 1700 years back. Before that, this word religion itself was not there. There was nothing like religion. Then what we used to have, we always used to have a way of life. And this way of life had these kind of things that were there. One very important aspect of this way of life is that all other species on this earth, they are just born to live and then they die one day. This is what their pursuit is all about. There is nothing like an advancement, doing something very as a purpose of life. They did not have anything excepting human being. This is what our philosophy has always said, that you are supposed to, human being is supposed to have gone through, is to go through what is called as a purpose of life. This is what is called as, artha means purpose. And by the way that you are living here, that's what is Purusha Artha. So in Purushartha, basically the idea is that we have to go towards the freedom, and this we can achieve it. And that freedom, Kaivalya, or what is called as Mukti, Moksha, these are various terms that are there. But ultimately the idea is that what is the reason why we have to go there? It is because of 3, 4, 5 things. One is that you don't feel bondage. And second thing is you are blissful. And third is that there is death itself will not become like a burden on you. These are the things that I can safely pass through the death. This is what in Raghuvamsham, Kalidasa says beautifully. What is that society there? It was Shaishave Abhyasa Vidyanam Yavanai Visheshanam Vardhakya Manuvrittinam Yoginante Tanutyajam. That means in a yoga way that he will just leave the body, in the sense that he merges himself with the consciousness so that body withers away. That's like the way that when a fruit fruits, then naturally it comes out of the fruit, out of the plant. That's how basically that you leave this body. That's what Kalidasa says, Yoginante Tanutyajam. So the yoga is the one which prepares us towards that. It prepares us for the life here, a beautiful life here. And also it prepares us to have a wonderful death. This is the purpose of life. So in this process, that's why this whole practice of yoga is supposed to be a lifestyle management or life process management. That's what is the way it has been there. It was never supposed to be a religion at all, because when it started 7,000-8,000 years ago, at that time, the word religion itself was not there. It was coined much later in English.
Great insights. Thank you. Then another follow-up question would be, when people relate yoga to chakras and all the 7 number, 8, there are so many thoughts. And as you said, yes, people can bring in all this verbiage, terminology. please let us know what
Yeah,
right approach to the chakra,
right.
the sacredness of them.
Hmm. Uh, this is a very great insight Indian philosophy had. Not only an insight about in these particular chakras only, but also in general that we have various shastras in Sanskrit which talk about how the language has used these shastras. One such thing is very important thing is we always used to use what is called as a upama. That means to say a analogy. Explain something that we use an analogy. And this is a very beautiful art that we had developed, a lot of analogy that was created. Like a very simple thing is that bank of the whole knowledge, the wisdom, we say actually wisdom is gained by all the senses and eyes, ear, this and that. And then just to indicate that it's a vast amount of what you see, vast amount of what you hear, and all that is what is called as the a vast amount of wisdom. And representative for this is Ganesha. And you see the beautiful image that we use is the elephant head. Elephant head, when you look at it, it has got big trunk, big ears, and then big head, so that it just in a figurative idea of giving that he is the god of uh, wisdom. And another thing, wisdom is always associated with innocence. Therefore, we have a Ganesha is always a child, innocent like child. So this is the way that we always used to use this kind of an analogy. And right from the beginning that we said that whatever that is unmanifest, which is Brahman, from that the manifestation reality comes into the picture. And this Brahman is also not that there is some God sitting there up in the sky. The very definition itself says that which constantly keeps growing, all encompassing, and that's what is the definition of Brahman. And it is continuously vibrant because it's growing. Scientists today is being able to accept this idea that the space is something which is constantly growing. This is what is the idea that they are looking at. But then it doesn't make any sense. It has to manifest itself. So therefore, they have given a very beautiful picture saying that it limits itself to a small little simple thing so that it can be in a number of them, and then there is an interaction, interplay takes place between them. It's a very beautiful way that Taittiriya Upanishad puts it, that this unlimited Brahman divides itself into hunger and food so that interplay can take place. When the hunger is there, the food is there, so that eating takes place. So therefore, there is a interplay taking place. So this is how the whole creation has been taking place. But it's always together that what is called as unmanifest Brahman, non-action, but then manifest Brahman, which is continuous. Activity and non-activity are together. And non-activity is the one which is at the base, and then activity comes from that. When you look at a simple example, analogy for that, where there is a tremendous amount of activity, but at the same time there is a non-activity, that's what is the wheel. Wheel has an axle which does not move at all. And the axle moves, then there is no point of the wheel. Whereas the periphery, that wheel is there which continuously moves. And also there is a purpose for that wheel. And what is that purpose of the wheel? A very simple thing. If you have a table, you try to push it, it doesn't, any object you try to push it, it doesn't move. It's very heavy, lethargy. Then what you do is that you mount few wheels on top, below that, and then you try to push it, it easily moves. Anything. That means to say wheel is a contrivance which converts physical activity, which converts the potential energy into the kinetic activity. Now this concept of wheel, call it as chakra in Sanskrit, and the chakra means also the same, the word meaning also that which makes it to move, charati. Charati means movement. And what causes the movement is what is called as chakra. So now once you have this concept of chakra, Now they have applied it everywhere. Wherever they found that a non-moving potential becomes a moving kinetic activity. And in the first place, it is the Brahman is non-moving, but the creation, Jagat, is supposed to be moving. So what is the chakra which is behind that, between that, is called as Kala Chakra. It is the time wheel. And that's why we say that it doesn't stop for you. The time wheel continuously runs. Even if the great person like Krishna comes onto the seat, but Krishna also has to subject himself to this time wheel, because that's how the whole creation takes place. From then onwards, that they applied this continuous wheel kind of an concept everywhere. Like, for example, they said that all these Rutu chakra that is there, that means to say summer, winter, then monsoon, again summer, all these things will come in the form of a wheel, so that the movement takes place. If you have only summer, and the mankind cannot survive, creation cannot survive. So it has to move from one to the other. So this is how basically the wheel concept is there. The time, again, like for example, that year after year after year, it goes on. 1 week, then again next week. It's a replica of this week and the next week and then next week. So it just continuously, everything in the form of a wheel that's moving. When you see this kind of a wheel moving all over in the creation itself, then they found that even within it also, these contrivances were conceived, not that they are reality, but then that is the way it is conceived, that these centers where the potential activity is converted into kinetic activity. And that's what very simple experience of each one of us. It is like that. Like, for example, I want to talk. So wanting to talk is a potential force that's there within me. If I cannot give an expression to that, I feel restless inside. And I need to have a center where I can give an expression to that. And that center should have where the non-moving thought should go there, and then moving action called as talking should happen. And that's what is called as the throat chakra, or the chakra which is supposed to convert my wanting to talk into the talk outside. So this is one chakra, Vishuddha chakra. Similarly, if I'm sitting for meditating and closing my eyes, saying that, look, I need to really quieten myself, suddenly at that point of time, some sound occurs somewhere in another corner of the room, place. Immediately a thought comes in my mind, what is that which has fallen? Is it something that I should go and help it? Then immediately another thought comes, no, don't get up. You are meditating. Don't disturb you. Whatever it is, it can wait till you come out. But then you feel that struggle is going on. Just to avoid the struggle, you are sitting, closing your eyes, but suddenly you just open a wink, small little corner of your eye, and then still look at it. Everything is okay. And then you close down your eyes and tell yourself that, no, I did not open my eyes. And all those things. So that there is a force inside to see that you open your eyes and see. That is called as ajna. Ajna means a order from inside, and then your eyes obey that. So therefore, the center where that this facility is there to open your eyes and close your eyes is what is called as Ajna Chakra. Similarly, I take the food. Food is supposed to be a potential energy. But as food itself, we cannot use that energy. It has to be converted into an energy. There's a whole lot of factory that we need to see that convert this whole food that we have taken into all this kind of energy which can really which can become the blood and this and that and run continuously, and what need to be separated from useful to useless and all that. And after that separation, that should be a separate channel through which that what is unwanted to be thrown. Such a big activity is going on, and that activity is called as Swadhisthana. Because that's where the center, where all these things actually happen. So this is what is called as a chakra. So like that, various chakras are there. And then somebody has given 7 chakras. Number does not become very important. Somebody has given 9 chakras. And another author, this is what The few days back, I was reading a book where he says that there are 16 chakras that are there in the body. Fine, it does not matter how many chakras that are there in the body. But only thing is, I want to see that all these centers very efficiently, actively work. When you look at it, all these centers, all these chakras that are there, it's supposed to be a chakras within me. I have that. But then I'm not the master, somebody else is the master. Outside is the master. It's the food which controls my hunger. It's the person what he talks controls my anger. And I see something, my tears roll down. I'm not control of my emotions. That's what is Manipura chakra. So like that, all these centers are the centers where activity is going on, not because of me, but because something else happens from outside and I spring out my action. It's a very beautiful word. That means that my action is just springing out. Like the way that you hit the ball on the wall and then bounces back. So we actually bounce ourselves. This bounce is what called a spring, and exactly the same word we have in Sanskrit. We have what is called as a Pingala channel. The channel called as Pingala is where it just springs out. Because of external world that you spring out. The second thing is, I want to say something, but I don't know what others will think about me. Am I stupid to ask this kind of a question? I don't want to ask this question. But when somebody asks that question, say, hey, I had the same question that I had. I should have asked for it. But then why did you suppress it? Again, we suppress it because of the outside world, what others people will think. So that suppressing is holding tight, not allowing it to come out, pressurizing. And that pressures creating, holding tight is what is called as Ida. Therefore, we have these two channels where our energy has been under Ida, we are suppressing, under Pingala, it's expressing. And we are not the master, it is the world as the master outside. We only react to everything that is there in the world. Because that we react to everything that is there in the world, we are tired. We don't have control over ourselves. We feel that we are a failure. Because I didn't want to do a lot of things, but then I end up doing all those things. I wanted to do a lot of things, but I did not do. Because the same thing that is, I'm reacting to the world outside. How many times we just sit quiet, but we are not sitting quiet because that there is restlessness inside. It is because that we are only suppressing the restlessness that is there. We are not giving an expression to that. Why did you do all these things? It's because the whole training has been that you respond to the world outside. In this world, constant training is to see that how you respond to the world outside. Right from the childhood. You look at a small little child, a guest comes to the house and then asks, "Yes, dear, what's your name?" The child smiles and mother says, "No, you should tell your name." See, he asked that, "What's your name?" You ask your same way that somebody said good morning to you and then the child smiles. No, you cannot smile. You should say good morning or you should say God bless you. So these are the things. When my niece was in the school, primary school, and then as soon as the children enter into the school, the children have to say good morning, miss. And then the miss used to stand in line and they say, God bless you, like that. One day it so happened that her mother, who is an inspector of schools, she went along with her daughter to the school because she is the boss now. So when she was going, all the teachers, all the assistants and the teachers, they were standing in line. And because their boss is coming, they were saying that good morning, miss. But then my aunt was just walking. But then the little girl was replying, God bless you, God bless you. That means that, good morning, God bless you. You have to say that. This is how we are programmed. We are programmed constantly to respond to the world outside. This is what happened to us. So we are slaves. We are slaves of the world. The world trained us to be slaves. No doubt about it. Mm-hmm. So now what yoga says is that you bring down the energy between these two centers. That means to say, no expression, no suppression. We think that yoga means it's only stopping the expression, But no, stopping the suppression also. When we do these two things, and I am the master, when I am the master, then I bring out the energy through the third channel, which so far I have not been using it. And I use through that channel where I have both the control of expression and also non-expression. Both these things are within me. And that channel is called as Ida Pingala, and in between we have what is called as Sushumna. So all these three things, Ida, Pingala, Sushumna, Chakras, these are all imaginary ideas. How you do it is very important. What is to do is important. Just to give an expression to what we do, where we do it, they are given these terms. Because terms are, it's all like this, that when I'm doing mathematics, we say that let the answer be, we assume that let the answer be A, and the result will be B, and B should be equal to A. Like that we say that A and B are not permanent there. It is like that we should take these things, ideas of various chakras and all those things. Now, what happens is, one thing that we say that these chakras, various positions are there. Now, there are certain practices when we do yoga practices, they have a special thrust on that particular center. Like, for example, you are doing this thing, what is that, shoulder stand. That means to say, Sarvangasana. You can see that completely there is a thrust on the throat. So this chakra is being affected by that. This center has been being affected by that. Your awareness comes to that level. So therefore, that is very useful for that. Similarly, when you are doing, somebody is doing the Mayurasana, at that time the elbows are pressing on the stomach. So naturally, for such disorders which are where you don't have a control over that stomach center, that may be useful to do this kind of practice because it brings about your awareness there. This is another important idea, that what happens is that whenever we are reacting to the world outside, we don't have the awareness. That is why we say that, did I shout at you? You shouted all the time. And at the end of it, did I shout at you? No, I never shouted. That means you're not even aware that you shouted at. So the lack of awareness. Practice of yoga bring about that awareness. In this area that we are talking about, the way that how people have mystified the whole thing and then mythified the whole thing, that means it's a mythological aspect of it. I would like to clarify a couple of more things to make it very simple. Probably I might have said it earlier also, but then again let me clarify it, because in this context it may be useful. And that is, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, when he talks about yoga to Arjuna, Arjuna asked this question that, hey Krishna, how did you know about all those things? And Krishna in reply says that I have taught sun god before he was born, and then sun passed it on to Ikshvaku, and Ikshvaku it went on to Manu, Manu to Ikshvaku, and all that, it came like that. He's talked about it. Now, it's very mystical kind of thing, and also sun god, and it's mythical. So this confusion was there. How do we resolve this concept of confusion from bringing it to the ordinary simple level? We try to understand. The way that I would look at it is that when Krishna said sun was born, these concepts were there. That means to say, yogic concept has always been there in the mankind ever since man came into existence. It's not that Krishna person is saying, but it is that this divinity had this, or whatever, that Brahman unmanifest level. When it came to the being, the thing is that the principles of idea of yoga was always there in the creation itself. Only thing is that Patanjali, he only put all these ideas in the form of a formula. It is like the way that geometry was always there in the nature. Ever since the earth separated from the sun and moving around in an orbit, electrical orbit and all that, yes, there was a geometry that was involved in that. only thing is Euclid came and gave the principles of geometry. Euclid did not create geometry. Same way Patanjali did not create yoga. These principles were always there. By putting them in the form of Yoga Sutras, he made such an extraordinary, wonderful service. Whatever that existed for several thousands of years before he was born, all that he put in the form of such beautiful 197 sutras, whatever it is, in the 4 chapters. It's a monumental work. We don't have to mystify this whole thing or mythicize these things, because Krishna said, therefore it belongs to Krishna only, or Patanjali said, therefore it belongs to Patanjali. Let's not put it that way. It is like the way that we take the science called geometry and then how Euclid put it, and then we use it. It is something very similar to that. So therefore this myth, we have to come out of it. Similarly, the sage Patanjali, name and all those things, they are just very poetical way of expressing that he was born in a palm when both the palms were together, and then he fell down into the Anjali, means palm, and then therefore he was born, something like that. His mother was doing like that, which means basically very simple thing is that right from the beginning he was so pure, so clear, that all these ideas that were there, right, evident in front of him. See, for a pure mind, for a clear mind, not being influenced by the world outside, these things can be easily available. I would always give like that. Patanjali later on in one of the sutras, he also gives that, saying that everybody sees the world outside, whereas somebody sees that what is there hidden behind it. And we have a beautiful example of Newton. Everybody saw apple falling down on the ground. It was only Newton who could see the earth pulling the apple downwards. No stretch of imagination can give us this idea that apple falling on the ground is because the earth is pulling it. See, it is something which is. So when somebody has that kind of an insight, we call him as a great saint. So in India, from the Indian point of view, Newton is a very great scientist, not scientist. Scientist is okay, but he's a saint. Patanjali that way is a great saint because he has seen something what's happening behind what normally people could not see it.
Right. So having spoken about the chakras and the numbers, like you mentioned, we hear more about the 7, and then you brought about there are 16, some say more than that. A question comes up here. The number of counts or postures people do, they number, like for the Surya Namaskaras, 7 or 13 or beyond. What is the myth or whatever it is, the knowledge behind the number here?
One thing is that we always had the count which is 108 and which is commonly used. Probably that's actually an addition of a numbering, when you go on adding, it becomes 108 is the even number that you can get into. That's one thing. And another thing is that 3, a lot of things are in the form of Triputi. That means we say Srishti, Sthiti and Laya, these 3. And therefore we have 3 gods for that. That is Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. These 3 gods representing that. And actually anything that you see, birth is there and the death is there. Where the birth is there, death has to be there. And then why is it born? Just to die. But in between the gap that is there, what we call it as life. So therefore, basically, these 3. See, first, it is anything that is formed into 1 becoming 2, immediately it does not become 2, it becomes 3. In the sense that if 1 becomes 2, then immediately what is the relation between these 2? That becomes the third one. So 3 is the basic number that we have after 1 universe. So 3 multiplication is the 108 it comes to, 27 it comes to. All these numbers, 9, these are all supposed to be the numbers of 3 multiplied by that. So we have a facility to remember those things with the number 3, and going ahead with that. Rather than, other than that, I don't think that there is any big significance about these things that are there. Like for example, you have to only say 27 rounds, or you have to only say something like about 21 rounds. There's a facility that we have about the 9, but other than that, I don't see there is a much big significance. Not only that, a significance also becomes very difficult if you want to do the number of rounds of, say, a practice called as Nadi Shuddhi Pranayama. If somebody says 27 rounds of Nadi Shuddhi Pranayama, the purpose of Nadi Shuddhi Pranayama is to see that how I can go deep inside to a level where I can transcend the prana. But if I'm counting the number of times that I'm doing it, that means this count will not provide me to go deep inside. It keeps me outside. So therefore, many times when I give yoga classes, I tell them that don't mind those numbers. Don't keep counting that. This is what Ramakrishna Paramahansa also said. How do you say that how many times that I have to say the name of Kali? Because that the Sandhya I have to do the Kali, and then daytime I have to do the Kali. He says, I don't even remember when the Sandhya has come, Sandhya is gone. Sandhyantare, Sandhantare. Kachushandi nahi par. I don't even know what is Sandhya. Where is the question of number count? I simply keep saying Kali, Kali, Kali Mole. Like that Ramakrishna Paramahansa says. Like making that number is not very significant in the field of doing all this practice of yoga.
Again, a beautiful clarification. Thank you. Now you have addressed more of the philosophy side. Now coming to the worldly side, the practical aspect of it, we can get into some misconceptions that become across. Probably in that line of thought, a question that generally comes up is, what is the approach to yoga? Is it just only the health trend? It has gone haywire in that aspect. Any thoughts from you?
Yeah, the original idea from Patanjali's point of view is to see that we go to reach the Kaivalya, purpose of life, and identifying with that so that whatever that we are not, de-identify from that, and then that we try to use it. Like for example, my body is something which is a tool for me to practice all these kind of things to go towards spirituality. It's a tool. My prana is another tool. The food that I take is another tool. So these are all the things which are the tools, equipment for me going towards that inner bliss and peace and all harmony. But what happened is, over a period of time, this became so important that you take care of the body, maintain this body. Why this problem has come? This basically misconception. This misconception came, the way that I look at it was that when Patanjali gave this idea of going towards Kaivalya, he never thought about all these sicknesses or anything like that. One or two sutras here and there, he says that your sickness can be an impediment in the path of going towards spirituality. That's all he said. Vyadhi can be one of the vrittis. It can, kleshas, which can stop you, which can prevent you, a progress that is there, so that take care of Vyadhi. Then later on, what happened is, much later after Patanjali, Swatma Rama, the Natha Parampara who were there in the northern part of India, where they have to negotiate forests and hills and all those people. So this Nath Parampara, people who are there living and practicing this meditation kind of a thing, during the lifestyle, they would come across a lot of injuries because that they were negotiating the hills. Probably food was not all right. The stomach upset used to be there. Respiratory problems used to be there. So there are 2-3 problems of this nature that they used to suffer. One is the back problem, respiratory problem, and the third is that stomach problem, prominently known. So what used to happen was that those people, over a period of several uh, generations, they had found out certain tricks and techniques by which that they could overcome those sufferings that were there. So therefore, when Swatmarama was the author who put all these ideas together in the form of book, Hatha Yoga Pradipta, there he picked up these ideas saying that somebody who suffers from some back pain, this will help, or doing this posture will help in stomach, and like that few ideas that he has given, not very logically giving some idea or thing, but they were very true because experientially he was giving these ideas. He just put them together. Matsyendrasana will help in this, Kurmasana will help in that. So like that he has given various ideas. So that is where, but every time that he gave that in Hatha Yoga Pradipika, he always said that these are all not ultimate, these are all the things so that you will do these things so that you can help, it will help you in growth in Raja Yoga. He always adhered to what Patanjali has given. And then Hatha Yoga Pradipta became like main thing as Hatha Yoga. And this is how basically Hatha Yoga became. And further, they started adding similar kind of things, saying that this is useful for this is useful for that. It happened that way. But then when people from the Europe, when they first came to India and they found these people practicing these various practices of yoga asanas, other things that it was difficult for them. So therefore they picked up the asanas because they were so much physically oriented. Their whole mindset was so much physical. So they have taken this away to the Europe. From there, Europe to America, it came more like physical practices. And I do not only blame them, but our yoga teachers also subscribed to that. They started giving that yoga to be purely physical. And when it became purely physical, then the whole idea is, people used to say that, look, why should I do yoga? I'm all right. I don't have any sickness. Then they started suggesting for sickness, yoga is very good, so that you have to follow. So I need to increase my population called yoga population. Therefore, that I started giving that if you do this practice, this will help. Back pain is there, do 1, 2, 3, 4 practices. Neck pain is there, do 1, 2, 3 practices. A stomach ache, do these practices. You have a headache or you are a headache, you can do these practices. So like that they have given. Now the whole approach of yoga has been so much towards the therapy. It is oriented. This is one aspect of it. But then another aspect also is very interesting that you will be really surprised to know about that. During my travels in the various parts of the world, I went to the East European countries, pre-Christian kind of churches and this and that I was there. And I used to see this oil painting of saints in that particular old monasteries and nunneries that were there. What I found was that most of the saints used to have herbs in their hand, or almost like every saint used to hold the herbs. I just was curious. I asked him why. I asked him why they have herbs in their hand. Then they casually said probably they had healing abilities. They know what herbs will heal somebody. And this was there not only in their Europe, but in India it was prevalent. Even till today it is prevalent. That's why we call it as hastakshepa, that somebody has a hand on what is good for somebody for healing. But then they didn't know how that herb would heal them. But then they were healers. So essentially, the spiritual people are supposed to be the healers. This is there in the West. And in fact, recently also that when Mother Teresa was anointed to be, Saint Teresa, the evidence that they had is that she cured so many people who are ailing. So like that, it is the ailment, cure is connected with the spirituality. This is how basically all over the world it was there. Probably that was the reason why they had praying to the God is called as meditation in English those days. And then treating the people when you give all those things is what is called as medication. So both these things were together. That word Vivekananda picked up as meditation and adapted for dhyana. Otherwise, there was no word for dhyana in English before Vivekananda came. So he picked up the word called as dhyana, as meditation. But then the Christian idea or the Western idea of meditation was basically you give the herb to the people and then pray to the God to see that God sends His grace to see that somebody is healed.
Interesting.
So there was always a tradition all over the world to see that a spiritual person is the person who will also heal. And they could easily equate a yoga teacher to be somebody who is a spiritual person. So therefore, they expected that yoga person is supposed to cure certain problems. This is how this connection has come about.
So beautiful. Well, you have answered all the questions follow-up I had. You kind of put everything together. Like yoga doesn't just mean postures.
Yeah, it doesn't mean postures. It doesn't mean only the practice of some breathing exercises. That's another thing. It is something which is much deeper than that. And meditation aspect is people, what they have done in yoga is postures. So therefore meditation is actually divorced from yoga. And they said meditation is something different. Yoga is something different. So like that they have given various, they put them into various, capsules, and then they started giving. So a lot of times like that, even when 20, 30 years ago, I used to see that people used to come and say that I'm interested in meditation, not in yoga. Very openly, they would say that kind of an approach that they used to have. Of course, now the world is changing. The myth called as the misconception that yoga is not connected with asanas, are not connected with meditation, not connected with the breathing, is completely, I think, is now has no place. We put them all of them together, then we understand yoga from the holistic perspective.
Then another misconception is the complicated the posture, to the benefit. Any
right.
thoughts on that?
The complications start from the beginning, saying that according to Patanjali, yoga is to be in the state of kaivalya. That means to say, it's a state of being. Yoga is not doing. But why do we still do it? To see that I can go towards that state of being. For that we do something. That doing is brought about because that we cannot go to the state of being without doing something or the other. Therefore, that we do something like that. So it's the state of being. But now that state of being is taken away from yoga, then the moment that you associate it with only doing, then naturally there is a corruption that takes place, that somebody who does more complicated, more acrobatic is supposed to be more advanced, more deeper yogi. This is how the concept has come. But actually what we need to do is to see that that is the reason why whenever I give the definition of yoga, I always keep saying that yoga is a journey from doing to being. It's not doing to more doing, much more doing and all that. It is from doing to being. That's what is the idea of yoga.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And a quick follow through into the basic element we all do, breathing. I have to ask you, prana.
Right.
Few things on that concept. How do we handle it? And how do we relate prana to yoga? Because quote pranayama is a big thing. Because if you're at the level of only doing yoga and if you don't do pranayama, misconception again is that, oh no, you're not doing something extraordinary. How do we bring that simplicity in prana, breath of life?
So, yes, prana is something which is very important within us. And in fact, not within us, that we are the prana is the way that the scriptures talk about it. And one of the manifestations is this breathing. of various activities that are going on of the prana, one such activity is the respiration activity. And respiration is what you see outside. Prana is what is happening inside. Ornament is what is there outside. Gold is there behind that ornament. So this way we need to understand that what is the respiration. Actually, by doing this pranayama, we are not controlling the respiration. We are actually controlling the prana. And whatever that manifestation outside is the respiration. So when we understand that, then that's an enormous amount of science that's there behind it. It opens up a new vista altogether, because it's not just only respiration, but various other activities are going on inside. And all that is supposed to be because of the prana. Prana is not what you see. Respiration is what you see. Prana is there what is behind. By handling this respiration, that you are trying to handle the prana. So Patanjali brings about a very beautiful concept about this prana. Krishna Bhagavad Gita brings about this concept of prana. Upanishads talk about prana. By the time that Upanishad talks about prana, you can see that what level that this whole concept of prana is taken to. It is taken from simple, ordinary physiological respiration to a level where it is supposed to be Brahmic activity, like that Upanishad takes it. That's a very beautiful concept about prana. So understanding, taking that simple respiration is what we are doing the prana control. It's again a misconception. And then once one misconception enters into that, then all the other misconceptions follow that. All the numbers that are there again, 16, 10, 20, this, that, and all kinds of things will enter. And then whoever holds it longer, like the way that whoever does the complicated posture is a greater yogi. Whoever says longer Om, that means to say breath is longer, that means he's a great yogi. These are the misconceptions that are available with that. So we have to go into the details about the prana.
Definitely, we will cover the right methodology for it in the subsequent recordings. Thank you so much. Well, I'll ask you another question. So there are three things when people talk about yoga world, yoga postures, then pranayama, and then, if you're not doing meditation, so you're not in yoga. So options there on the concept of meditation, please.
Right. We go from gross to subtle. So Annamaya Kosha is the grossest level to Pranamaya Kosha next level, and Prana will take us to Manomaya Kosha level. And then Vijnanamaya, Manomaya, and then finally when we go into what is called as the bliss or Ananda or consciousness, which is supposed to be our own nature. So in this journey, that step that what we go from after the prana to the next step, it's about the mind, chitta, which is supposed to be the idea called as dharana, dhyana, samadhi. These are the three steps Patanjali gives. Of these three steps, dhyana is the word basically what we do. Dharana and samadhi seem to be like the two banks of the river. Dhyana is the river which is flowing in between. That's why from the ancient times you always used to have the reference to about dhyana practice, dhyana mandira, dhyana position, and never people used to say about dharana and samadhi, because these two are not what you do. They are like banks, and in between what we have is the dhyana. And Vivekananda, when he wanted to give this idea of dhyana to the English audience, he struggled in the beginning, but then finally he settled with the idea of meditation. That's how a person who introduced the idea of meditation for dhyana is Vivekananda. So therefore we need to understand what exactly was the meaning of meditation, but what is the meaning of dhyana, or that connection. If you apply that correction for meditation, then probably we'll be doing the right kind of meditation. So therefore, Whatever that is there, we are practicing in the form of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama. Then it goes to pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Then we are established in the self. So therefore, it's an obvious continuation journey that we need to make is the dhyana or the meditation.
We can cover more on the meditation aspect as well in detail.
Right.
So the misconception is the number of hours that you can sit. So those kinds of things come up. Or if you're not sitting, if you're standing, you're not meditating. So these sometimes they seem silly, but the meditative state is something entirely different. The meditation itself.
Yes.
When it comes to true practice, how do we come about that misconception?
When Patanjali talked about this samadhis, that means to say, normally what people think of the stages when we do the meditation, at the end of it, we get into the state of samadhi. Meditation is supposed to be the word for dhyana. Originally, dhyana is the word that in Indian philosophy we always used to use it. Dharana and samadhi, they are like two banks of the river. Dhyana is what is flowing in called as the river. When we say river, it is not the banks, it's what is flowing. Same way, dhyana is the one which is there. When Vivekananda first in the West, he was giving the ideas on Patanjali Yoga Sutras. When he wanted to cover the dhyana, connecting word in English, he settled with the idea of meditation, which was very good. And he adapted that word, and from Vivekananda's time onwards, that people come to know about this idea of meditation. So we need to understand that what is the idea of meditation, different from dhyana. We make that correction and then see that how we can use the meditation and the practice of yoga as a further continuation from asana and pranayama, then to meditation to go towards kaivalya.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for the beautiful insights you have provided us, to me and to all our Smriti viewers. We are going to continue in detail about the authentic practice of yoga, pranayama, and meditation also in our forthcoming episodes. Stay tuned with us. Please visit smriti.upaasana.net for the repository of wisdom, jewels of wisdom that people like scholars, yogis like Sri Raghuram Garu, like we have today, and many others are sharing their life works. Stay with us, follow us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel called Upaasana, and we do have a Facebook page, Smriti Talks. Stay with us. We are all in this together. It is a responsibility on all of us to preserve our rich, ancient wisdom. And thank you again, Raghuram Garu. It is an honor to have you among us sharing your knowledge. Namaste all. Stay with us.